My name is Beverly Hart. I am 68 years old, and I live in Norfolk, Virginia, in the same brick house James and I bought in 1989, the year he made lieutenant commander. I am going to tell you what happened at my son's wedding. I will tell it quietly, because that is how I lived it. There was no shouting. There was no smashed glass and no speech written for applause. There was a navy dress, a wooden box of medals, a rental contract with my name typed in black ink, and a young woman who believed my scars were a branding problem. I said, "Oh, I see." That is what I said in a hotel suite on a Saturday morning in late April, while my daughter-in-law held up a high-neck gown the color of wet sand and told me to hide the parts of my body that had survived things she had never had to survive. This is a family revenge story. There is no violence in it. Only paper, timestamps, and a woman who mistook my grief for weakness. The suite was on the 8th floor of a waterfront hotel that charged $289 a night for a view of cranes and gray water. Paige had booked it for "getting ready," which meant ring lights, steamer wands, and matching robes the color of uncooked shrimp. The carpet was pale shells. On the dresser sat sparkling water nobody had opened and pastries nobody was eating, because crumbs were not, as Paige put it, on brand. She held the gown by the hanger as if she were presenting evidence. It was a high-neck column. The neckline came up under the chin. The sleeves were long. Illusion mesh ran down the chest in a color meant to pretend it was skin, as long as the skin underneath had never met a surgeon. "Wear something that hides your scars," Paige said. "People will be taking pictures. I will not have that in my feed." Her mother, Corinne, stood by the window with a coffee she had not paid for and nodded once, like a coach confirming a play. Thomas, my son, sat on the edge of the bed in his undershirt and looked at the carpet. He is 32. He is a junior naval contractor. He has his father's hands and his father's habit of going still when the room gets sharp. He did not look at me. He did not look at Paige. He looked at the shells in the carpet as if they might rearrange themselves into an excuse. I could have reminded them that the hall was rented in my name, and that I had paid the $14,600 balance so Paige would stop crying about hydrangeas. I did not. I said I understood. I did not wear the gown. I never forgot that morning. If you are going to understand why I pinned my late husband's medals over my heart and walked into Harborview Club looking exactly like what I am, you need to know who James was, and who I was before anyone decided my body was a problem of aesthetics. James Hart was a Navy man the way some men are left-handed. It was not a costume. It was the grain of him. He came out of a little town west of here with a cheap suitcase and a letter from officer candidate school, and he never stopped standing as if the floor might inspect him. He retired a captain. He died 2 years ago of cancer that started in his pancreas and then took every room it could find. I sat beside him in a chair that left a dip in the linoleum of the oncology wing, and I learned the names of drugs I never wanted to learn. Before that, decades before that, when we were young and he was still a lieutenant with a laugh that could fill a galley, there was a fire. I do not tell the fire story for drama. I tell it because Paige later called the mark it left a warning label. It was a Saturday in a shore facility kitchen that should have been empty. A fuel line on a range had been repaired by someone who signed the log and did not double-check the fitting. James had gone in to grab coffee for a junior sailor who was too proud to admit he had missed breakfast. I had come to drop off a casserole because that is what wives did then, and because I liked seeing him in the middle of his day. I heard the sound first, a hard cough of ignition, and then I smelled it, that sweet chemical stink of fuel-finding air. He was between the range and the door. His sleeve caught. I pulled him out by the shoulders and then by the belt, and the splash of it ran down my left forearm like a sleeve of heat. The scar is pale now, wide, from just below my elbow almost to my wrist. At home I wear short sleeves. I have worn short sleeves for 40 years. The medals came later, and they were his, and then they were mine. There is a wooden box in our closet, cedar, with a brass latch that still works if you press it slightly to the left. Inside, on dark velvet that I replace when it pills, are the things the Navy gave him for living a certain kind of life. A Bronze Star. A Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal. Service ribbons in a neat row, colors I can name in the dark. He kept them polished even after retirement, not because he was vain, but because sloppiness offended him. After he died, I kept them polished because sloppiness would have offended him still. I am not a woman who wears medals as jewelry. I know the difference between next of kin and costume. Those medals are legally mine. They are not a prop. They are a record. Thomas was born in 1994, on a wet Tuesday, and James held him like a briefing he intended to get right. We raised him in Norfolk because that is where the work was and because I liked the smell of the water even when it was ugly. Thomas grew up around men who stood when a senior walked in and around women who could pack a household in a weekend. He is not a bad man. I need you to hear that clearly. He is a man who wants peace more than he wants truth, and that is a different kind of danger. He brought Paige home 3 years ago, 6 months after James's first bad scan and 2 months before we stopped pretending the scans would improve. Paige Brennan was 26 then, 29 on the wedding day. She had a laugh that sounded practiced and a way of entering a room as if the furniture should adjust. She worked in brand partnerships, which seemed to mean she was paid to make ordinary objects look like a lifestyle. I tried. I made the pot roast James liked. I asked about her work. I let her photograph my hydrangeas and did not mention that she cropped the peeling paint off the porch rail. Thomas looked at her the way a tired man looks at a hotel with good lighting. I thought my son deserved something that was not a hospital corridor. Corinne came often enough that I learned her perfume, something sharp and white on the guest towels. She is the kind of mother who manages a campaign. She once ran a finger along my grout and said, "You could brighten this. Grief makes people keep things too long." I smiled. I have a smile I use for inspections. James liked Paige the way he liked any bright object that made Thomas sit up straighter. He did not live long enough to see the rest. The last good week we had, James asked me to bring the metal box to the hospital. He wanted the colors on the tray table. A corpseman saw the Bronze Star and stood a little differently. James said, "Bev, when I'm gone, don't let anybody turn me into a theme." I told him I would not. He died on a Thursday in March, early, while the river was still the color of steel. Thomas held one hand. I held the other. The chaplain that morning was Roy Ellis, who had served with James on a deployment I am not going to name because James never named it at dinner. Roy has a voice like a well-kept engine. He said the right short words. He came to the house afterward and sat at my kitchen table and drank black coffee and did not try to make the silence useful. The funeral was at the base chapel. I still keep the folded flag in the top drawer, under the handkerchiefs. The first year was coffee made for 2 and drunk by 1, and James's Oxfords wrapped in tissue on the shelf above the metal box. Thomas came every Sunday at first. Paige came with him by June, set a department store candle on James's desk without asking, and called me adorable when I moved it. I mention Roy because he officiated the wedding. Paige wanted a photographer who looked like a poet and a ceremony that looked like a magazine. She did not want a chaplain until Thomas said, very quietly, that his father would have wanted Roy. Paige allowed it the way you allow a vintage car in a driveway you intend to pave. The year after James died, I found the lump. It was my right breast, then a mastectomy, then a line of surgical scars across my chest and up toward the collarbone. At home I do not hide it. I wear soft cotton button-downs and leave the top 2 undone because the scar pulls under a high collar. I have earned the right to be comfortable in my own hallway. Paige saw the scar for the first time on a Sunday in October, 11 months before the wedding. I had come in from the garden. The air was warm. My shirt had shifted. She stared the way people stare at a cracked windshield, calculating whether it ruins the trip. "Oh," she said. "That's a lot." Thomas said, "Mom had surgery." "I know," Paige said, and then she smiled as if she had remembered her manners. "You look great, though. You'd never know if you wore the right neckline." I said, "I know." That was the first time I understood that she was not looking at a woman. She was looking at a composition. Paige sent a white bouquet the week I came home from the hospital. The card said "Heal Pretty." I kept it in the receipt folder, not because it was kind, but because it was information. At Thanksgiving, across James's mother's plates, Paige asked if I was going to do reconstruction, the way you ask if someone is going to paint a room. I said I had met the surgeon, looked at the photographs, and decided my chest was finished being a project. Corinne set down her fork and said there were wonderful options now, that I would never know, especially for events. Thomas said I could do what I wanted, and he said it to the gravy boat. I passed the rolls and did not adjust my sweater. The collarbone scar stayed where it was. The study was James's. There is a desk of scarred oak, a lamp with a green glass shade, and a framed photograph of James on a pier in his khakis, squinting because the sun was behind me. On the shelf, until Paige, were his paperbacks with the spines broken in the places he loved. 6 months before the wedding, Paige asked if she could refresh the space for content. Those were her words. Refresh. Content. Thomas said it would just be a few photographs for her page, something about heritage and modern love. I was tired that week. The reconstruction consult had not gone the way the pamphlets promised, and I had decided I was done letting other people redesign my chest. I said she could take pictures. I did not say she could rearrange a life. I came home from the pharmacy and found James's paperbacks in a grocery bag by the back door. The desk had been pulled to a new angle. The green lamp was in the hall. In the window hung a cream linen banner with the words "New Chapter" painted in a hand that had practiced looking effortless. Paige was on a step stool, holding her phone above her head, smiling down at a version of my house that no longer contained my husband. "Don't worry," she said, without coming down. "I'm keeping the vibe. Just editing the heavy stuff." The metal box was not on the closet shelf where I keep it. I found it in the hall closet, behind the vacuum, as if it were seasonal. I put the books back. I put the lamp back. I put the box back on the shelf and I polished the bronze star until I could see the kitchen light in it. I did not raise my voice. I told Thomas, later, that the study was not a set. He said, she didn't mean anything by it. That sentence became the wallpaper of the next year. The engagement dinner was at a restaurant downtown that charges $18 for a salad that is mostly air. I wore a navy blouse with a boat neck. Both scars showed. I had moisturized them with the same unscented cream I have used since the burn healed. Paige stood to toast. She had written it on her phone. She lifted a glass of something pale and said she was grateful to be building a new family without the heavy stuff. A new family. Without the heavy stuff. There was a little laugh from her side of the table. Corinne put a hand to her chest as if the line had been brave. Thomas smiled the way you smile when a toast is happening and you have not yet translated it. I sat with my water glass and felt the old burn tighten in the air conditioning. Grief is heavy. A mastectomy is heavy. Pulling a man out of a fire is heavy. None of that had asked Paige's permission to exist. After dessert, in the coat check line, Corinne touched my sleeve. "She didn't mean you," Corinne said. "She meant, you know, the mood. Young people want light." I said, "I see. I have said those 2 words more times than is good for a person." The dress fitting was in February, in a shop near Ghent that smelled of steamer water and new money. Paige's gown was a column of bone-colored silk with a train that required 2 people and a philosophy. I had been asked to come as family, which I still was, then, in the ways that get printed on programs. I sat on a white velvet chair and watched the tailor, a man named Luis with pins in his cuff and kind eyes, mark the hem. Paige turned on the platform. She looked like an advertisement for a life that never spilled coffee. Then she glanced at me, and at my arm, and she said, as if she were solving a design problem, "Luis, can we cover Mom's arm with illusion fabric so it looks normal? For the ceremony photos. Just so it doesn't pull focus." Luis looked at my forearm. He looked at Paige. He looked at me. I said, "My arm is normal." Paige laughed, light, a little scolding. "You know what I mean. It's a whole thing. The chest too, if we're honest. I'm just thinking about the album." Corinne, from the sofa, said, "Paige has a very specific visual. It's not personal. I have learned that when someone tells you it is not personal, it is the most personal thing they will do that day." Louis said he did not make garments for guests unless the guest asked. Paige's mouth tightened. Thomas, who had been in the hall on a work call, came in and said we could talk about it later. We did not talk about it later. The seating chart arrived by email in March, attached to a file named final_V7_use_this. I was at table 11. Table 11 was listed, in smaller text, as vendors and late additions. The family tables were 1 through 4. Corinne was at table 1, on Paige's left. Thomas's college roommate was at table 2. I was with the florist's assistant and a DJ whose name I did not know. I called Thomas. He said Paige had a vision for energy flow. He said the photographer needed clean sight lines at the front. He said I would still be in the family photos, just not, centered. I said, I paid the hall balance. He was quiet. Then he said, "I know, Mom. Please don't make this a thing." I did not make it a thing. I printed the seating chart and put it in the folder where I keep receipts. I am a woman who keeps receipts. 2 weeks after that, Paige came to the house without calling, which she had begun to treat as a right. She stood in my kitchen in a cream coat that would have shown every fingerprint and told me the floral budget had a gap. The gap was $40,000. She said the original quote had not accounted for imported ranunculus and a hanging installation over the sweetheart table. She said if I could not help, she would understand, and then she said, in the same breath, that James's widow could sit this one out if the money was too tight. James's widow. She used those words as if they were a category and not my name. Thomas was at work. I could hear the refrigerator cycling. I could hear a lawnmower 2 yards over. I looked at this young woman in my kitchen, in the house James and I had paid off in 2009, and I understood that she believed money was a personality test I was failing. I said I would think about it. I did not give her $40,000. I had already given $14,600 for the hall, and $3,000 for the photographer's second shooter because Paige had cried on my porch about shadows, and I had written a check for $800 for the welcome bags because Thomas asked me at 9 at night like a boy who still thought I could fix the weather. I thought about the $40,000. I thought about the study. I thought about illusion fabric. I thought about table 11. I transferred nothing. That evening Thomas called from the car. I could hear his blinker. I could hear, behind his voice, the particular tightness of a man who has already lost the argument at home and has come to collect a different ending from his mother. He said Paige was crying. He said the florist would not hold the hanging piece without a deposit of $12,000 by Monday. He said Corinne had offered to cover half if I covered half. He said, and I will give you his exact words, "It is just flowers, Mom. It is one day. Why does everything have to be a principle?" I stood in the kitchen with the phone against my ear and looked at the grout Corinne had once found too old. I said, because the last time I treated a demand as just one day, I found your father's medals behind the vacuum. He was silent. A truck went by on the street. Then he said he would figure it out. Corinne called me the next morning at 8:12. I know the time because I was writing the date on a utility check. She said, "Beverly, I need to speak woman to woman. Paige is building a life. You are living in the last one. Do not make your season her problem. Appearances matter in Thomas's line of work. You of all people should understand presentation." I let her finish. I said, "I understand presentation. I also understand invoices. I have paid $14,600 for a room, $3,000 for a second camera, and $800 for bags of pretzels with their names in gold. I will not pay $40,000 to be told my arm is a problem of focus." "Good morning, Corinne." I hung up. I do not think she was finished. That was, I admit, a small pleasure. Paige told Thomas the First was punishing them. Thomas told me I was making his life harder. I told Thomas the First was done being a budget line that came with conditions about my skin. The rehearsal was on a Friday evening at Harborview Club, which sits on the water with white railings and a ballroom that has seen 1,000 Navy weddings. The light off the Elizabeth River at that hour is the color of old brass. James and I danced there once, in 1996, at a retirement party that was not ours. Paige walked the aisle with a binder. She spoke to the photographer, a young man named Cole with 2 cameras and a nervous kindness, and I heard her because I was meant to hear her. "No close-ups of her neck," Paige said. She did not lower her voice. "Crop her. If you get the arm, crop that too. I want clean frames. I don't want the comments." Cole looked at me. His ears went red. Corinne added, "It's a kindness, honestly. People can be cruel." I stood beside a potted palm that had been rented for the weekend and felt something in me go very still and very clear, the way the air goes clear before a storm that has decided its path. Roy Ellis arrived in his clerical collar and shook my hand as if we were still in a world where that was enough. He asked how I was sleeping. I told him I was sleeping. It was not entirely a lie. That night I went home and laid the medals on the bedspread. Bronze Star. Commendation. The ribbons in their row. I felt finished being edited. Saturday morning I drove to the hotel because Thomas had asked me to be there for hair and family. I brought a simple navy dress I had owned for 6 years. Scoop neck. Sleeves above the elbow. Matte crepe that does not shine and does not apologize. I had ironed it the night before. I also brought the medals in a small felt pouch in my purse. I decide, and then I prepare, and then I let other people reveal themselves. Paige revealed herself with the sand-colored gown. "Wear something that hides your scars," she said. "People will be taking pictures. I will not have that in my feed." Corinne nodded. Thomas looked at the carpet. I held the hanger. The illusion mesh felt like a lie against my fingers. I thought of Luis and the word normal. I thought of table 11. I thought of James's widow sitting this one out. I thought of crop her. I said I understood. I hung the gown in the closet of the suite and left it there, tag still on, a $420 instruction I had not ordered. I went into the bathroom, closed the door, and ran the tap so the sound would give me a private minute. My face in the mirror looked like my face. The scar at the collarbone was a pale rope. I put my fingertips on it, the way the nurse had taught me to check the skin, and I said, very softly, "Not today." When I came out, the bridesmaids were laughing about a fake eyelash. Paige did not look at me again. I took my garment bag and my purse and I told Thomas the First needed something from the car. He nodded without hearing me. In the elevator, my phone buzzed. The message was from a bridesmaid named Hannah, who had helped me with a stuck zipper at the rehearsal and had said her grandfather's shipboard burn looked like courage. Hannah wrote, "I think you should see this." "I'm sorry." Attached was a screenshot of a group chat titled Peace Day Only. Paige's message, timestamp 7:41 that morning, read, "If she shows those scars I will have security walk her out. She looks like a warning label." Under it, Corinne had written, "Do it if you have to. This is your album." Someone had sent a string of emojis I will not describe because they were small and cruel and I do not give them extra air. I stood in the elevator and watched the numbers fall. A couple got on at 5 with a stroller. The woman glanced at my arm and then away, the ordinary glance of a stranger, not a verdict. I saved the screenshot. I sent Hannah a thank you. I did not ask her to do more. She had already done the brave thing. In the parking garage, in the front seat of my 12-year-old Camry, I sat with the phone in my lap and felt the plan assemble itself the way a kit assembles itself when you have kept all the pieces. I would not cancel the wedding. I would not throw a glass. I would not take a microphone. I would not be seated with the caterers. I would wear my own dress, my own skin, and James's medals over my heart, because they were mine to wear, and because a warning label should at least be accurate. I called Roy Ellis from the car. He answered on the second ring. I could hear traffic behind him. He was already on his way to the club. I said, "Roy, I am going to wear James's medals. I am going to look like what I am. If Paige asks you to pretend my husband did not exist so the pictures stay pale, I need you to remember him anyway." Roy was quiet for the length of a breath. Then he said, "Bev, I was going to remember him whether you called or not. But I'm glad you called." I said, "If you have a moment before you begin, I would like his name said out loud. Not as a theme. As a fact." He said, "I can do facts." I called the club manager next. Her name is Denise Morrow. She is 54, former supply, the kind of woman who keeps a paper clip in her pocket and a copy of every contract in a binder with tabs. I had signed the Harborview agreement in January. I had initialed the cancellation clause. I had paid the $14,600 balance from the account that still says Hart, James, and Beverly, because I had never changed the checks and did not intend to. Denise answered in the voice she uses for vendors who arrive early. I said, "Denise, this is Beverly Hart. I am the renter of record for the Hart Brennan reception. I am not canceling. I am attending. I want to confirm that any instruction to remove me from the property would be an instruction to remove the contracting party." Denise did not ask for gossip. God bless a woman who does not ask for gossip when the paperwork is clear. She said, "Mrs. Hart, the contract is in your name. Security works for the club. They do not remove the renter because a guest is unhappy with a neckline. If someone attempts that, I will end the event under the conduct clause on page 4. I will also keep the fee. That is the agreement you both benefited from." I said, "Thank you." She said, "Wear whatever you want. The river doesn't care." I drove home. I pressed the navy crepe again, even though it was already done, because the ritual mattered. I put the dress on. The scoop neck sat where it always sat. The collarbone scar was a clean line. The left sleeve ended where the burn began to widen. I did not cover it. I have never found a concealer that understands heat. I opened the cedar box. I pinned the bronze star first, over my heart, where James had worn it. Then the commendation. Then the ribbon bar, even and level, because he would have measured it with his thumb. The metal was cool through the crepe. I put on low black heels and the pearl studs James gave me after Thomas was born. I took my purse with the printed contract, the seating chart, the receipt for $14,600, and the screenshot. Harborview at 2 in the afternoon was white railings and rented boxwoods and a breeze that smelled like salt and someone's expensive candle. Guests were arriving in pale colors, as instructed. Paige had sent a pallet, bone, sand, oyster, fog. I was navy. I was the only Navy besides the older men who had not read the email. I saw them notice the medals before they noticed me. A retired master chief I knew from the commissary, a man named Wade, stopped on the steps and put his hand over his heart. Two sailors in dress blues straightened as if a hallway had just acquired a senior. I did not sweep in. I walked. My heels sounded like ordinary heels on ordinary stone. Corinne saw me from the portico. Her face did a brief, ugly math. She came down 2 steps, smiling with her teeth only. Beverly. That is not the gown. I said, it is not. Paige will be devastated. The photographs. I said, then the photographs will contain a fact. She looked at the medals. You cannot wear those. That's costume. It's tacky. I said, they are not costume. They are next of kin. And they are level, which is more than I can say for your daughter's manners. I did not raise my voice. A valet turned his head and then turned it back. Corinne hissed, actually hissed, a little sound through her teeth, and went to find Paige. I went inside. The ballroom was a study in absence. White flowers on white cloth on white chairs. A sweetheart table under a hanging cloud of pale blooms that had, I assume, eaten a portion of the 40,000 I did not provide. The air smelled like roses that had traveled too far. On a stand by the door, the seating chart had been lettered in gold. Table 11 still had my name, B. Hart, in a corner, beside 2 vendor lines. Denise Morrow stood near the service entrance in a black suit. She caught my eye. She nodded once. I nodded back. That was the entire conversation, and it was sufficient. I did not sit at table 11. I stood near the back of the ceremony rows, where the river windows threw light across the chairs. Roy was at the front in his collar. Cole the photographer saw me, saw the medals, saw the scar, and for a second his camera hung like a question. I did not pose. I watched the water. Thomas came down the side aisle to find me. He was in his dress blues. He looked like James around the mouth when James was about to admit a mistake and had not yet found the sentence. Mom, he said. Paige is losing it. She said you promised. I said I understood. I did not say I would disappear. The medals. They are your father's. She's talking about security. I looked at my son, really looked, at the boy who used to fall asleep under James's desk during late paperwork, at the man who had learned to love peace more than truth. I said, if she calls security on the woman who rented this room, Denise will close the bar and keep the check. You can tell her that, or I can. I would rather you tell her. It will sound less like a threat and more like arithmetic. He closed his eyes. He looked very young. I didn't know about the group chat, he said. I showed him the screenshot. I did not make him hold the phone long. He read it. The color left his face in a way that had nothing to do with his collar. He said, warning label. I said, yes. He said, I need a minute. I said, you may have a minute. You may not have my absence. The string quartet began something pale. A lieutenant named Patel offered me his arm and walked me to a chair on the aisle, second row. A cousin from Virginia Beach shifted over as if the seating chart had been a rumor. Paige appeared at the back on her father's arm. Her gown was beautiful. Then she saw me, and the smile fractured. Her eyes went to the medals, the neckline, the arm. Cole lifted his camera and did not know where to point. He chose the whole frame. Good. Let the album contain the room as it was. Corinne, in the first row, turned and whispered something that did not need to travel to be understood. Roy waited until Paige reached the front. Thomas took her hands. Paige's fingers were tight. I could see the white of them. Roy did not begin with the usual welcome. He looked out at the river windows and then at the gathered faces, and he paused long enough that the quartet's last note had somewhere to go. "Before we begin," he said, and his voice filled the room without strain, "we honor Captain James Hart, United States Navy, retired, who is not in these chairs and is not absent from them. And we honor the woman who carried him out of a fire when they were young, and who later carried his name through illness. Beverly, please stand." I was already standing. I had not sat. The cousin from Virginia Beach made a small sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. I did not curtsy. I did not wave. I put my hand, briefly, over the medals, because that is what you do when a name is said correctly. Then the standing started. It was not arranged. I had not asked anyone to stand. Wade the Master Chief stood first, then the two sailors in dress blues, then a row of men whose shoulders remembered how, then wives who had packed those same households, then more of the room than not. Even Cole stood, camera down. Paige did not stand at first. Thomas, still holding her hands, turned his head toward me, and then he let go of one of her hands and he stood, in his blues, and he faced his father's medals on his mother's dress. Paige stood because the alternative was to be the only white statue in a room that had decided to be a congregation. Roy said, "Thank you. You may be seated." I sat then. The scar on my chest pulled slightly when I did, a familiar tug. I let it. The vows were short. Paige's voice shook, not with feeling I trusted, but with the effort of holding a narrative together while the narrative stood up and walked around. Thomas said her name. He also, when Roy prompted him with a line about the families who made them, said, "I will honor the people who came before this day," and I knew that sentence was for me and for the man who was not in the chair. They were married. I do not steal that from them. The law took their names and joined them. A fact can be a fact and still sit beside other facts. In the receiving line, a woman from James's last command said he would have hated the flowers and loved that I showed up. I said I thought that was accurate. Paige, when she reached me, leaned in as if to kiss the air beside my cheek. She said, very low, "You did this to ruin me." I said, very low, "I did this to remain visible." Corinne, behind her, said, "Security." Denise Morrow was suddenly there, as if page 4 of a contract could take human form. She smiled the professional smile. "Mrs. Brennan," Denise said to Corinne, though Corinne was not a Brennan, a quick word. "The hall is rented by Mrs. Hart. Any request to remove the contracting party ends the event immediately. The bar closes. The band does not play. The fee is retained. I am happy to continue a beautiful evening. I am also happy to follow the paper. Your choice." Paige's mouth opened. No sound came out that I will give space to. She did not call security. I said, "Excuse me," and I went to the restroom and ran cold water on my wrists, because adrenaline is a practical problem. At the reception, the seating chart became a suggestion that sailors declined to follow. Patel and Wade and two men from James's old wardroom pulled a chair to the front table as if chairs had always been movable objects. They set a place. They poured water. They did not make a toast of it. They simply made a place, which is the older and better ritual. Paige watched from the sweetheart table under her hanging flowers. Cole took the picture. I hope he keeps it. Dinner was chicken that had been cooked with more hope than salt. I ate what I could. Thomas came and sat, for 4 minutes, in a chair that was not assigned to him. He said, "Dad's name." I should have said it more. I said, "You said it today." He said, "The house. Paige thinks we close next month. She posted about it." I looked at my son. The house on Granby is a 2-story brick we bought as a rental in 2004. James painted the shutters navy himself. The last tenants moved out in January, and Thomas asked if he and Paige could take it over, as if that were the same as owning. It was not a closing gift. It sat in the Hart Family Trust we set up in 2017. Occupancy was conditional. Thomas had signed an acknowledgement the week after the funeral. In March, Paige posted the empty living room and wrote, "Our first place. Manifesting the keys." I had seen the post. I had not commented. Paper is more patient than comments. I said, "We will talk about Granby when the flowers die. Not tonight." He nodded. He looked at the medals. He looked at my throat. He said, "I hated that chat." I said, "Hate is a start. Truth is better." The toasts came. Corinne spoke about destiny and glow. Paige's maid of honor spoke about manifestation. Then Thomas stood with a glass and a piece of paper that shook. He said his father's name. He said, "Captain James Hart taught me that you stand up when it costs you something." I did not do that well this year. I am going to do it better. This is my wife. This is my mother. Both of those sentences are true. If I have to choose a version of this family that erases one of them, I will not choose that version. It was not a perfect speech. It was a first speech. The room did the kind of quiet that means people are rearranging their loyalties in real time. Paige cried. Some of it may have been real. I am old enough to let a person have their tears without auditing them in public. I did not speak. I had said what I came to say with cloth and metal and a contract. I left before the sparkler tunnel. I do not like open flame near silk, and I had already had my fire. Denise walked me to the door. She said, "Page 4 stayed in the binder." I said, "That is my favorite kind of ending." I drove home along the water. In the bedroom I unpinned the bronze star first and laid each piece back on the velvet in the order he had taught me. I closed the latch. I slept in pieces, which for me is a victory. The week after a wedding is when the photographs try to become the truth. Paige posted sky and florals and wrote about staying gracious. She tried to crop me out of the wide shot. A guest named Alan, from James's last wardroom, commented with his own picture, the room standing, the medals, Roy's mouth open on my husband's name. Alan wrote, "This is the day I attended." The comments were a roll call. People who had stood wrote that they had stood. Hannah sent me a message that Thomas had asked to see the rest of the chat, and she had shown him. Thomas came to my house on the Thursday after, in civilian clothes, and sat at the kitchen table where Roy had sat after the funeral. He put his phone down, face up. The group chat was there, scrolled to a message I had not seen, from Paige, 2 days before the wedding, "If she wears short sleeves I swear I will move her to the parking lot." My mother said widows get weird and cling. I read it. I folded my hands. Thomas said, "I don't know how to be married to that and be your son." I said, "You start by not lying to either of us about the house." On Friday I called Martin Hawley, the trust attorney, the same gray tie man from 2017, who is now grayer and no less precise. I did not ask him to be cruel. I asked him to be accurate. On Monday morning Thomas and Paige sat in Martin's office on Bausch Street. I was not in the room. Martin later told me what he had reminded them. The house on Granby was not Paige's closing gift. It was not a wedding present. It remained in the Hart Family Trust. Thomas had a right of occupancy, renewable in 5-year terms, contingent on the house remaining a family residence and not being encumbered, refinanced, or titled to a third party without the trustee's written consent. I am the trustee. James made me the trustee because he trusted me with fires and with paper, which are not as different as people think. Martin noted, mildly, that social posts implying a transfer of title should be corrected. Mild as a kind of steel. Paige asked whether a mother-in-law could be removed as trustee. Martin said no. Thomas, Martin said, sat very still, and then asked for a copy of the occupancy clause to take home. I did not ask Thomas what was said in the car afterward. Some conversations are the tuition a man pays for having looked at a carpet while his mother was handed a gown. On Tuesday I drove to Granby myself. I still have a key. On the counter James had tiled 20 years ago sat a bottle of champagne and a card that said "Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Hart," as if the title had already moved. Paige arrived while I was still there. She said, "This is our house." I said, "This is a trust property. You may live in it if the terms are kept. You may not post it as a closing. You may not put it in your name. You may not speak to me as if my scars are a lease violation." She said, "You made me look cruel in front of 100 people." I said, "You wrote the sentence." I only declined to hide the evidence. She did not stay. I locked the door. I put the key back on the hook James screwed into my kitchen plaster in 1991. Paige's public version of the day collected more comments from people who had stood. Someone posted the medals. A woman from the commissary pharmacy line wrote, "A body that survived is not a stain." Paige took the post down on Wednesday and put up a latte instead. Corinne left a voicemail about respect and how I had turned a sacred day into a military display. I forwarded it to Thomas. Truth includes the sound of a coach after the play fails. I live in the same brick house. The medals are back in the cedar box. I polished them this Sunday after the wedding and closed the latch, pressing it slightly to the left. They are not a costume. They are a record. My scars are still visible. Last week a child at the grocery store asked me if it hurt. I said, "A long time ago. Not now." Her mother started to apologize. I told her there was no need. Thomas comes on Sundays now. Sometimes Paige comes. She is polite in the way people are polite after paperwork has entered the marriage. She does not photograph the study. I pass her the potatoes. That is a kind of peace I can live with. I think about that hotel suite more than I think about the standing. The suite is where the sentence was said. Wear something that hides your scars. People will be taking pictures. I will not have that in my feed. What I will not accept, not at 68, not after a fire and a mastectomy and a man I loved reduced to a tray of cups, is the idea that my survival is an aesthetic error. When I walked into Harborview in navy crepe with a bronze star over my heart, I was not performing. I was labeling the room correctly. Paige mistook my grief for weakness because grief is quiet, and weakness is the only quiet she had been taught to recognize. Grief is not weakness. A body that survived is not a stain on a color palette. If you are waiting for a moment when I screamed, you will wait a long time. I iron. I pin. I call the chaplain. I call the woman with the binder. I sit in the front because sailors made a place. I go home and I put the metal back in the wood. My name is Beverly Hart. I live in Norfolk. I wear short sleeves in my own house. If you have been told to crop yourself out of your own life, I hope you hear me. You do not owe anyone a high-neck gown purchased without your consent. You owe the dead their names and the living your presence. If this story stayed with you, stay with me. Subscribe for more family revenge stories every day. I will keep telling them the way I lived this one, quietly, with the lights on, and with every true thing left visible.